You guys, the missing voice is missing. Oh my God. Do you guys know about the missing voice? If you guys don't know about the missing voice, you need to listen to this video. And this video is going to describe everything about the missing voice, honey. You thought the missing throat was something? Wait till you hear about the missing throat, a voice. And also, they're talking about who were who on the boats, because remember, it was 4 boats. And we're talking about all boats and who was who on the boats and the mystery. When I tell y'all, it got so much information in this video, you got to sit down and watch it and listen to it because I don't want you to miss something. When I tell you this is a conspiracy to take down Nolan Wells, it is a conspiracy to get away with this and to make us think like we're crazy. Nah, buddy, y'all are crazy and we on to y'all and y'all can't.
I mean, we loved him dearly. Yeah, Nolan was like a brother to us, and I can say without a doubt, nobody wants to know what happened to him more than we do. I mean, we want to know what. I mean, Nolan was like a brother to all of us. I mean, we loved him dearly. Yeah, Nolan was like a brother to us, and I can say without a doubt, nobody wants to know what happened.
All right, after this, I'm probably going to take a couple days off because my brain needs a rest after the last couple of days. Now we know for sure that there was storage in the bow of the boat. All right, so now at this point, I am pretty sure that the Triton was there all day. They didn't switch out the boats. And I'm also pretty certain at this point that this is a real video because there's one single frame where you can see Bart's boat and you can also see the toes of somebody like dangling them off the water. So if the picture or video were AI, it would be a really bizarre thing for it to just kind of throw in. But there's zero question in my mind that this video has been altered. So then the question becomes, why would they alter this video? And the only thing that logically makes sense to me is to alter the identity of the 2 girls. Because if Carter is the boy in red, Wyatt is the boy in the American shorts, Bart's brother Brooke being the one in the navy blue shorts, and then Ike being the one in the teal shorts. Then we've got Warren up here with somebody in this red striped swimsuit and the girl in the teal swimsuit with the backwards hat. So in this picture, this would be Brooks, this would be Ike, this would be Wyatt, this would be Warren, which would leave this to be Carter. Now, whoever this is seems to be very cuddly with Carter. Like, too cuddly, in my opinion, for it to be like a mother or a family member. Thinking about it a lot from the timeline that we have been told, and what we haven't really been factoring in again is the party. Because remember, Warren said he went to the party, but instead of talking with all of his friends, he went upstairs to go talk with his girlfriend's dad. Now, those families are tight, so if that dad of Ava, if that conversation with the dad didn't happen, then they would automatically know that they were lying. So I've been saying for a while that the girl was somehow involved. And mind you, everybody's back on land now. They're getting ready to do the fireworks and everybody's swimming and drinking still, blah, blah, blah. So what's the excuse for no pictures at that party? They've explained it all away during the day, but at this point, they're all just being teenagers and having fun again, right? So I'm thinking that the brunette girl is Ava, the girl whose house they went to. And she's pretty close with Warren and the Pyrone family.
And they're full speed running. And then after that, I didn't see them anymore. I think you were on the boat. You start from there?
Yeah, so after we planed off, Wyatt kept the boat pinned the whole way in. We ran into the mouth of Fort Bayou, where we came from originally. And we turned into Fort Bayou, went in the channel, ran probably 500, 600 yards into Fort Bayou. Wyatt had jumped out of the boat, put the plug back in the boat so access water. So water didn't keep pushing and filling back the boat.
According to their own words, they went into the mouth and then they turned and they went about 500-600 feet. Now, mind you, the party house is right around, but they go past it and then loop back around. However, Warren just admitted that at some point they had to stop and Wyatt jumped in. And even then, you heard him stuttering over the story. Like, it wasn't a smooth transition because I think they dropped her off. Which would explain why they would go back to this party, because obviously they can't cancel the party. That looks really suspicious. Then my theory has always been that the guys all like broke off and like talked to the parents about what was going on, and that's when they formulated their whole we'll call her and then we'll call the Coast Guard plan. Remember, she is related, somehow I can't figure out, but she is related through marriage to the lieutenant that wrote up the very initial report we've seen. Because remember how Morgan claimed that the picture of the boat stuff was circulating around Snapchat and stuff, even though Christine didn't post it to her Facebook page until the next day. Listen to this.
His mom was, what was he wearing? And so we were trying to remember what color his shorts were. We couldn't quite figure that out.
I said black.
Yeah, I think we said
'Cause
black.
I really did. He was wearing navy blue shorts.
Yeah, it was like dark blue shorts.
Dark. I just said black because I was trying to piece everything together and help out.
And so at this point, we're freaking out. We don't know where our friend's at. And the girl that took the picture, she was like, okay, well, I just took this picture of today. This is what color swim trunks he was wearing. And his mom asked for that to post on Facebook to say, if you've seen him, whatever, this is what he was wearing.
So remember, the girl who took the picture with the digital camera was on Wyatt's boat at the beginning of the day and then was there with them at night when they were having this discussion. So she had to have been there at the beginning and at the party at the very least. Then we remembered that the original shorts picture, well, that wasn't the color of his shorts, as we now know. So we also know for a fact that this picture did not get sent to Christine until July 5th, meaning that they had to have had that picture and then not sent it to her for hours. Because they also said this.
And so that's what we sent to her, or that's what she sent to her, because we're just trying.
So they corrected themselves. He said, we sent it. No, she sent it. Then on July 5th, Christine said that they have been up for almost 48 hours straight. And then the very next post above it are the same pictures, but better quality. Why did it take so long to get these pictures to them? Oh, and y'all, now that I said that, I realize, so all of these pictures had to come from the same digital camera, right? Meaning this picture did as well. And since I've already proven that this picture had used AI to do something weird because, you know, there was no little bar here, only explanation for using AI on just this little part would be to obscure the reflection that was in this pole of the person who was taking the video. Or the pictures. Oh my God, yes. That makes sense. Love it when I figure that stuff out in real time for you on camera. So it makes sense to me that this photo video thing was altered to cover up this girl's swimsuit. Because let's face it, this swimsuit is the ugliest thing. It has like supposedly like sleeves and it's a tankini, but it goes like in a weird cut, but it's ugly. It's ugly and it's clearly not what these debutante beauty queen girls are wearing to a 4th of July beach party. So I'm like 70% sure that this is Ava. Oh wait, oh my God. Wait a second. Shown y'all guys before that there's 4 boats out here in this little cluster, right? But I'm looking at these weird pink lumps and stuff at the front of the boat, Bart's boat here. Is that a pile of life vests? Because I'm realizing there's not 20, 30 people on all of these boats. Like I'm seeing 10, 12 people here tops. Let's not forget what a full house looks like on these boats. Because even in this video at the meetup place, there's not 20, 30 people getting ready to get on these boats. I mean, the boat left at 9:56 according to the GPS. We got like 7, 8 people here, like 6 people here. And also, if they were legitimately needing to be towed and they were trying to get the water to run off, why are they all spread out on the boat? Why are they on the boat in general? Why didn't they just get off on land or get on another boat? Trying to get the boat to tip up and go planing, why do you have over half the boat on the front of the boat? These are experienced fucking fishermen. They know better than that. Yeah, I can't believe I've never thought of that before. If the boat was sinking, why are they even on the fucking boat? Yeah, and if it was so common and so easy to get, you know, rides back with other people, you know, strangers on Horn Island, why did they need to load everybody on the boat? Or were they yelling at Nolan to get on the boat? They didn't need to get him on the boat. And now that I'm looking at this, doesn't it look like Warren is on the phone? Could this have been when he was calling his mom 8 times? Also, one more thing that stuck out to me.
We called law enforcement. I was with Wyatt at the time after we left Jackson's house that night. I was with Wyatt and one person we were with saw that their location was headed towards Wyatt's house. And so Wyatt got on the phone with 911 and was like, hey, these people are on the way to my house or already at my house. My mom and my dad are there alone and they know nothing about this.
He stumbled over his words from beginning to end in that story, so I don't believe any of it. But the one thing that sticks out to me was the phrasing, they don't know anything about this. If people are heading over to your house, why wouldn't you call your mom and dad before you called 911? Because it sounded like he was trying to keep his parents out of the loop of this story, which as a teenage boy implies that you have something to hide. Just a lot of different things to think about, right? Katie dry snitched on those boys and y'all didn't even notice. Let me break it down for you, because here we've got the Snapchats from Katie, right? You're gonna notice her teal swimsuit. Right here, we're gonna notice a striped swimsuit. In this video from the 3 boats, you're gonna see Bart's boat. And in this corner, you're gonna see a girl in a striped swimsuit right here. And then right next to her, with the same hair, is a girl in a teal blue swimsuit. Katie is on Bart's boat in this picture. But wait, they tried to be real clever playing with the lighting on this. Hopefully you got your brightness turned all the way up, because you'll notice Katie is wearing a white hat. Now here we've got the picture from the tow, right? Teal swimsuit, white hat. Oh, but that's not all. Again, hope you've got your brightness turned all the way up, because here we've got somebody in red swim trunks. Oh, and would you look at that? Red swim trunks. Here he is on the shore next to Nolan after the fight with Tristan. Now, I'm getting mass reported, by the way, so my page might disappear any second. Y'all remember the fight video? In the background, I found a man who looks suspiciously like Grandpa Jerry. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it is him. I'm just saying. Seems to have a very unique, pectoral shape. And obviously this picture is from a couple years ago, because there's Wyatt. But I am not done, folks. Because the same time she dropped these Snapchats, she said that she allegedly got a ride with someone named Marty McGrath between 5:34 and 5:44. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, the co-owner of the Biloxi Bay RV Resort and Marina in St. Martin is co-owned by a man named Marty McGrath. Here's the marina, and here's how far away it is from his buddy's grandparents' house, the one they went back and forth to like 4 or 5 times after they came in. But you may also remember from the report that after leaving the grandparents' house, the boat came southwest towards St. Martin's Bayou. Well, there's St. Martin, so I'm gonna assume that this is the bayou. Now, would this happen to be a Marty McGrath Jr.? Or was it the actual Marty McGrath? Mind you, it took 45 minutes for them to make it back from the grandparents' house to the boat launch. Mind you, that the boat ramp is in the opposite direction, only 6 minutes away on land. Katie girl, it's over. Katie, you're young. You haven't learned this yet, but these aren't your fucking friends. They are literally not worth fucking protecting, okay? Because they've all coordinated their stories, girl. You are gonna be the fall person. Do you want this to follow you around forever, or do you want to be...
Forget the disputed recordings. Forget the theories circulating across the internet. For a moment, there is a more important place to look. The accounts the friends themselves gave Officer Tatum during their 2 interviews about what happened on the boat. Even without the controversial audio or online speculation, their version of events leaves behind a mechanical sequence that still does not fully fit together. The core explanation was essentially the same in both interviews. The group said the boat began taking on water while it remained anchored near Horn Island. Warren later provided more detail, saying the bilge pump was unable to keep up with the incoming water. As the water level continued rising, it eventually reached the battery, forcing everyone on board to start dealing with the problem before the situation became a full-blown emergency. The emergency call appears to support that basic account. During the call, the group reported that the boat was sinking and requested a tow. The recording also showed that Coast Guard assistance was offered twice, but declined both times. Instead, the group decided to wait for a private towing company to come to them. On the surface, that sequence sounds straightforward. But the picture becomes considerably harder to follow when the boat's actual movements are placed against the timeline. Because at that point, the issue is no longer simply about deciding which person is telling the truth. It becomes a question of what physically happened and when. Jax's account of the call with STO International contains one detail that becomes especially significant when the timeline is reconstructed. He remembered the dispatcher asking questions that, in his view, were unnecessary while everyone on board was still trying to figure out what was happening with the boat. Then, according to Jax, the group disconnected the vessel and managed to get the motor running again shortly after that conversation ended. But there is another piece of information that complicates that version. Footage reportedly recorded around the same period appears to show a line already being pulled in while the call itself was still taking place. And if that footage accurately reflects the timing, one question immediately follows: what exactly was happening on the boat during those crucial minutes? If the footage has been interpreted correctly, it creates a very specific question. Was the boat already separating from a tow or another vessel before the conversation with STO International had actually ended? That alone does not prove that anyone contradicted themselves. It does not establish that anyone intentionally changed the story. Emergencies rarely unfold in a perfectly organized sequence. Multiple things can happen simultaneously, and when people later try to reconstruct those moments from memory, the precise order of events can easily become blurred. But this particular detail is important for another reason. Unlike someone's recollection, it can potentially be checked against something objective. The boat's GPS data provides exactly that. Instead of depending solely on what the friends remembered months later, the tracking information can show where the vessel was and when it moved. CBS reporting makes that data particularly significant because it provides a timeline that exists independently of the friends' accounts. According to the GPS record, the boat departed Horn Island at approximately 4:31 p.m. But what happened afterward was not simply one continuous journey back toward shore. The tracking data reportedly shows several distinct movements. At approximately 5:44 p.m., the boat reached its original dock. Then, only minutes later, at around 5:52 p.m., the vessel made another trip toward Fort Bayou before returning to that same original dock at approximately 6:06 p.m. And then the timeline presents another detail that stands out. The boat remained stationary for more than an hour. It was not removed from the water until approximately 7:19 p.m., when it was placed onto a trailer for the journey home. That sequence is difficult to reconcile with the simplified version described during the interviews with Officer Tatum. Their account presents a relatively direct chain of events. The boat developed the problem. The group managed to deal with at least part of it, and the vessel was eventually either towed or brought back. But the GPS record appears to show something more complicated. And if those timestamps are accurate, the next question is unavoidable. Why did the boat make those additional movements? And what was happening during the hour it remained at the dock before being taken out of the water? The GPS data shows a series of separate movements, followed by a substantial period in which the boat remained stationary, before it was eventually removed from the water. That difference alone does not establish that anyone was concealing anything. There is a straightforward explanation that has to be considered first. The evening unfolded over almost 2 hours, under stressful circumstances, and later interviews naturally compress complicated events into a much simpler narrative. Human memory does not function like a GPS tracker. A person may remember an experience as, "We got the boat working and went back," even though the actual sequence involved multiple trips, stops, and delays. A short interview could easily leave out those logistical details, while the GPS system recorded them minute by minute, and that is precisely what makes the discrepancy worth examining. The question is not simply which version sounds more believable. Unlike disputed recordings or conflicting memories, the boat's movements can potentially be compared against an independent digital record. Can those documented movements actually be reconciled with what the friends told investigators? That same method becomes important when the focus shifts from the boat to the phones. Viewed separately from the broader theories surrounding Nolan's disappearance, several of the friends offered a relatively ordinary explanation during their interviews. They said phones generally stayed aboard the boat rather than being taken into the water. The reasoning was practical. Salt water could damage the devices, the phones were already accessible on the vessel, and cellular reception in the area could be unreliable. Nothing about that explanation is inherently unusual. But the question becomes more specific once the phone timeline is placed alongside the boat's movements. Does the normal boating explanation actually account for what the available digital evidence shows? The explanation is internally consistent. It provides a reasonable reason for Nolan's phone not necessarily being with him, and it broadly matches the boating habits described elsewhere in the investigation, including earlier reporting involving Officer Tatum. Yet one detail remains unresolved. According to the official MDMR report discussed earlier, Nolan's phone was reportedly recovered from a friend's truck. Not from the boat, from a vehicle. Those locations are materially different. Saying that phones generally remained aboard the vessel does not by itself explain how Nolan's specific phone ultimately ended up inside a truck. That does not establish that anything suspicious happened to the device. It simply creates a logistical question that the interviews do not appear to fully answer. Then there is another detail from the emergency call. One statement in the recording says, "Everybody is on board." Placed beside the friends' accounts of Nolan and the boat, that sentence naturally attracts attention. But there is an important distinction. Neither interview claimed that Nolan was physically aboard the vessel when the emergency unfolded. Warren, Jax, and Morgan consistently said Nolan had already chosen to remain on Horn Island with Katie before the bilge pump problem became serious. Under that version of events, the phrase "everybody is on board" was not necessarily referring to Nolan at all. It could have meant everyone who was supposed to be aboard that particular boat was present. If Nolan had already been excluded from the group returning by vessel, then the statement can be interpreted as an accurate response to a narrower question about the passengers aboard the boat, not necessarily a statement accounting for Nolan's whereabouts. But that interpretation depends on one critical point. What exactly did the person making that statement understand the question to mean at the time? That interpretation remains possible. And without stronger evidence, turning that single sentence into proof of deception would go beyond what the record supports. The more difficult issue is what happened after the apparent emergency had passed. If the water problem was under control by the time the boat reached its original dock at approximately 5:44 p.m., and the events that followed become far more significant. At that point, there was no longer an active sinking emergency being reported. There was no reported missing passenger from the boat party requiring an immediate explanation. Yet the GPS record still shows additional movement, another trip toward Fort Bayou, a return to the original dock, and then more than an hour before the vessel was finally taken out of the water. So what was happening during that time? That question stands out even more, because the interviews devote considerable attention to the earlier mechanical crisis. The friends discussed the bilge pumps, trim controls, batteries, hatches, the water entering the vessel, and the efforts they said were necessary to keep the boat operational. But once the immediate danger appeared to have passed, the account becomes noticeably less detailed. And that may be the most important unresolved portion of the boat testimony. Not proof that something improper occurred. Not evidence that anyone was deliberately concealing information. Simply a defined period, independently reflected in the GPS data, that the interviews have not completely explained. And importantly, this gap exists regardless of the disputed recordings or contested photographs. The mechanical explanation itself is not inherently unreasonable. The emergency call, in which the group reported that they were sinking, their decision to refuse Coast Guard assistance, and their later efforts to get the vessel functioning again are broadly consistent with information available outside the interviews. The issue is much narrower. The friends gave extensive descriptions of the emergency itself. They explained the mechanical problems, the water entering the boat, difficulties with the bilge pump, concerns surrounding the battery, and the steps they said they took to stabilize the vessel. But after the crisis appeared to be under control, the timeline becomes considerably quieter, and that quiet period may matter more than it initially appears. Because around the same general window, concern about Nolan's whereabouts was beginning to develop among the people back on land. That does not mean the friends should have been able to provide a flawless minute-by-minute account during media interviews. These were not formal depositions. They were responding to increasing public scrutiny and accusations, not conducting a forensic reconstruction of every ordinary moment that evening. That distinction is important. A formal investigation could approach the unanswered period much more precisely. Investigators could separately establish where each person was, who they contacted, what they were doing, when their phones were accessed, and what occurred between each documented GPS movement. Those answers could then be compared against phone records, other witnesses, Life 360 data, and the vessel's GPS history. With enough independent records, a vague gap in the timeline could potentially become a documented sequence. For now, however, the boat interviews do answer one major question, with relative consistency. Why did the boat return without Nolan? According to all three accounts, Nolan had remained on Horn Island with Katie and was never expected to return with the group by boat. But the larger timeline leaves another question unanswered. What happened after the emergency was over? The vessel had returned to the dock. The immediate crisis appeared to be behind them, yet the GPS data records another movement, another return, and then a lengthy delay before the boat was finally removed from the water. And somewhere within that same broader window, back on land, a mother was beginning to realize that something was wrong. Her son was not where he was supposed to be. From that point forward, the boat timeline was no longer simply about pumps, batteries, and mechanical problems. It had become part of the much larger question surrounding what happened to Nolan.